On this episode, we talk about car automation and what happened when we tried out Tesla's new automatic lane change feature. And then we answer your questions about 85 octane gas and vehicle data loggers. Next on Talking Cars. Hey, we're back. I'm Keith Barry.
I'm Jake Fisher.
And I'm Kelly Funkhauser.
And today, it's a big day about Tesla and partial automation. We tested a new feature that Tesla sent out to some of its cars. It updated its Autopilot partially automated driving system. Did I get that right?
Yes.
Very good.
Okay, partially automated driving system. And it was a software update to the Navigate on Autopilot feature, which itself is a beta test of... Kelly, why don't you please take over?
All right, I'll try to break this down.
Yeah.
So Navigate on Autopilot is a feature that's added on to the Autopilot package, the partial automation that does the steering and speed control, the input. And if you put in an address into your navigation system, then it will tell you how to get there and also suggest which lane you should use while traveling to your destination.
Okay, that sounds kind of helpful.
Yes.
The latest version, though, that all three of us have driven, it was the latest software update actually allows you to allow the car to make those lane changes for you, right?
Right. So the previous version, you had to confirm that you wanted to make that lane change. So the car would suggest that you should change lanes into the left or the right, but you actually had to either hit the signal to confirm that or a button on the screen. Now you can go into the settings and adjust that so that you either hear an audible chime or a vibration on the steering wheel before it makes the lane change, or you can turn that completely off and it will just do the lane change for you without notification.
So all three of us have driven it. You drove it. I drove it. What'd you think?
Well, here's the thing. It's neat. You know, I mean, from a standpoint of like, oh, wow, look what this car can do. You have to be this watchful eye. And really, to use it correctly, I mean, that's what it is said. It is said you need to be ready to take over at any point. And you need to watch it, and you need to be involved. So, no, it's not driving you. You're still the driver of the car. But you need to be ready because some of the lane changes that it's made are a little bit frightening. I mean, one of the things that it really seems to have a hard time of is if there's a car behind you that is approaching quickly. Very often it'll just kind of pull right in front of this vehicle, and if you don't stop it, you have to go and cancel out this thing and be ready. You might cut someone off really badly.
I got some gestures made at me when I was driving.
Thumbs up?
Oh yeah, they were thumbs up. Nice Tesla. Hi.
Right.
I guess I'm famous from Talking Cars. They're fans.
Right.
That must have been
Absolutely.
that must have been
how great it was. But yeah, no, it actually was a little unsettling how many times I had to kind of crank the wheel a little bit.
Don't do that.
See, don't do that because I could see the car coming, but the car couldn't see it. Now Tesla tells us that this can see brake lights, it can see turn signals. It doesn't feel like it's actually.
It doesn't seem to react to them. So, I mean, very often, like, there will be a car, and really strangely, too. Like for instance, you'd think it would be kind of conservative and just, like, pass on the left, but it'll pass on the right.
On a 2-lane road, which in Connecticut is not legal.
Well, and
it's not safe anywhere.
Or for instance, we have often these, like, the slow truck lanes. Very often it will go and pass in the slow truck lane. And sometimes you'll see a car in front of you, and it's got a turn signal on, so they're about ready to go over to the right, but it's not acknowledging that, and it'll still, move over and try to pass the vehicle on the right, something that you wouldn't do. Like, okay, this car's getting ready to move out of the way. I'm not going to go initiate the pass now.
Yeah, you cut off a cop, right?
Yes, there were. Yes.
The car didn't. You did.
That's right. So I was following a tractor trailer, and it was going slower than I was. So the car wanted to pass the tractor trailer on the left, but there were two highway patrol officers coming up quickly on my left. They didn't have their sirens on or anything, but they were still approaching quickly and marked. And so the Navigate on Autopilot went ahead and started to make that lane change, and I got pretty close to the line, and I could tell that was going to be a bad option. So I had to take over, especially cutting off a highway patrolman isn't a good idea, really. And then immediately after that, the Navigate on Autopilot then suggested I get over following them, and then also then sent me back behind the tractor trailer once before actually passing again. So it was a little bit of playing around with trying to figure if it was actually going to pass the tractor trailer or if it was, that tractor trailer was kind of going the same speed as me, and it was just kind of a confusing interaction.
Not that good, which really
Right.
kind of brings to up the point of, is this a safety issue? Or is this, really, you got to think about what is the point of autopilot. To a lot of people, the real pluses of autopilot is, well, it makes driving less stressful and easier. This does not do this. This actually adds this whole level of stress.
Your job becomes that you're monitoring the car. It's like a
Right.
new kind of driving.
Well, you've always been monitoring the autopilot. Don't let it do its thing. It's not a good idea. But it adds this level of, with the Navigate on Autopilot, there were a lot of these instances where it suggested to make a lane change, and you could clearly see it was not a good idea, and so you could either ignore it or shut off that suggestion. And now we're seeing if you shut off the confirmation
It'll
of
just do
doing
it.
so, then it'll just do it. And so we've seen, a lot of these situations where it wasn't really a good idea, and now it's just going to go ahead and do it. And so it's actually making me
More
stressed.
stress.
And you said it only one time. That's the. There are a lot of cars that have, that have turn signal assistance that are similar to the original type of navigate on autopilot.
Right. But this is
Similar.
where,
This
I
is
said
when
it.
you
Well,
change it once.
And for someone who's using this, it's not really helpful from making me safer. It's not helpful from making me less free. I
It tells you it's a beta test when you log in.
Again, I would make it like, it's similar to like a first-time driver getting in the driver's seat and they're driving and you're sitting there like, what are they going to do?
Yeah, you're not giving them enough space, or you're cutting them off too early.
But
or
it's
not
like if
making the
someone,
right gap.
you think about stress, like it is less stressful for me to drive the car than to let like one of my kids drive it if they've never driven before. Like that is what we're going on. And this is kind of like letting someone who has never been behind the wheel, who may or may not make a good choice or not, and then monitoring them to see what randomness is going to ensue.
And I talked to some folks who are sort of more experts in the hardware side of things, and some outside experts, and they let me know that this might be the limits of what this current system can do. So this might be the best that this ever gets until that whole new chip comes out. But I guess I don't want to make this all about Tesla, because there are other systems out there that we've tested, like Nissan ProPilot Assist, Volvo Pilot Assist, Cadillac Super Cruise, and we're planning on testing some updated systems from BMW and something entirely new from Kia. But so far, we haven't experienced anything that will take the wheel from you the same way that this system from Tesla does when the lane change confirmations are turned off.
Well, and we've done tests
And we've
of different
tested
systems.
how much would the addition of this feature change the way that we rank?
It really wouldn't. So the fact that this is now changing lanes for you and suggesting, guidance on your navigation route, that's never really been a factor in the testing that we've done of these other partial automated driving systems. So although it's adding this possible convenience, to me it's a little bit stressful feature, it's not actually impacting the score so much as keeping the driver engaged. The vehicle still doesn't have a driver monitoring camera. It's requiring the driver to put torque on the steering wheel, which we've said is not very efficient to make sure the driver is paying attention. So it's still lacking these key elements that could increase the score, whereas this is just a very small
So when
novelty.
we rated them, it didn't. We looked at it. We saw the Cadillac Super Cruise was a better system overall than the Autopilot system, and the reason wasn't because of the lack of capability of Autopilot. We said capability is very good. The problem is the safety side of it, and that issue in terms of how do you keep the driver engaged and whatnot. And I think what is kind of the bigger issue here, and it's not about Tesla. It's about driving automation in general. It's like we're heading down this kind of a scary path, because right now, okay, you know what? I'm not saying this is a big safety issue, because we're more engaged. We're like, oh, okay, what's it going to do? The problem is that when they put this chip in and they make the system better, and now it's doing these lane changes very, very well, what's going to happen is, until we get to the point where the instructions to the driver is, you don't have to pay attention anymore. you are being driven, it is autonomous. But until we get there and the systems get better, we're going to be in this really scary spot because it's going to be very, very hard to pay attention when the system goes 20, 30 miles without intervention and is driving very well.
Yeah, so to
there,
break
right?
it down, we're nervous about the future of these cars that do perform well and have a lot of capabilities. This feature that we were just talking about doesn't really perform well enough to let you check out. But the direction of the other automation systems, the Cadillac and others that we've tested before, once those get better, they need to require driver monitoring in an effective way because drivers are now, getting bored. And there's this phenomenon called highway hypnosis, where you're just driving along and everything's going by quickly, and you start to, relax and you become drowsy. And we've all been in a hot car with the sun beating down on us and think, oh, that'd be a great time to take a nap, right? And so once you're checked out of actually having to do a lot of the driving and you begin to monitor, then we have the issues of keeping the driver engaged if the car is performing well enough that they are kind of starting to check out.
Yeah, so it's almost this weird paradox where you want to be not good enough, you want a system to be not good enough that drivers have to sometimes come in and take over.
And that's exactly right. In fact,
or you want it to be perfect.
When
Right.
we did the ratings, some of the automakers actually even told us this. We
Right.
talked to Volvo. They were like, well, we didn't make it too good because we want to make sure that people realize this is not an autonomous car and this is something that you have to stay engaged with.
And I think Tesla is aware of this too. It isn't just Volvo and other manufacturers. I think they're aware of it because every time we talk to them, they'll almost always have a similar statement that uses the words. They say that the system has to be used properly by an attentive driver, and the driver has to be prepared to take control at all times. That's really hard to do when the car is doing a decent job.
Right, when it gets better, and that's the whole issue, that using properly. We're talking about human error here. The whole promise of any of these systems is trying to deal with the fact that humans do make errors, right? We've all heard the numbers. 94% of crashes are because of human error. But now you are relying on the lack of human error to use the system properly, and I would argue that actually using the system properly and staying engaged when you're not steering, when you're not doing speed control, is probably harder than staying engaged when you're actually driving a car.
A new type of human error as a result of
which may be
becoming
even a more likely human error than some of the traditional ones of staying engaged in the driving
and the
experience.
natural reaction is to, check out and find something to stimulate your brain, to take your mind off of monitoring, because that's really boring.
And there's a lot of other things
There's
in
a
that
lot of
car
stuff.
that is, not just any car. If you have a smartphone, there's a lot of other things to do.
You look at aviation, and those pilots are trained to work with automation. We're trained barely to drive cars. We're not trained to monitor a partially automated system.
It's not that easy.
Right. The literature shows that, workers that have to monitor systems going back, into the industrial age, we're not very good at it. That's why a lot of the automation took over, is because people aren't good at monitoring automation.
Look, there's a reason why you have to agree. To be totally clear, right? When you go and use the system, when you use the system for the first time, you have to say, yes, I want navigate on autopilot. You have to go and say, yes, I don't need to acknowledge the changes of lanes, right? There's a warning screen there, and then if you're going to turn off those alerts, there's another warning screen there.
And you can also set the intensity of how hard it changes lanes.
Everything from mild to Mad Max. But it's like there's a reason, and they give you those things, and they tell you that there's an issue here.
Right, and navigate on autopilot, and autopilot in general is still referred to as a beta feature. So this is just another extension of an already beta feature. But the fact is that it's a beta feature that's been on cars now for quite a long time, and people are using it. So even though it's a beta, you still need to be aware, or because it's a beta, you need to be extra aware that it's not working up to what your expectations.
And a beta feature is really different with Adobe Acrobat Reader versus a car that is cutting in front of a semi.
Right. The failure modes are not
very
as severe.
different.
Ultimately, look. Let's get real. Anyone who has a Tesla is going to try this thing out.
Yeah. Right.
But it's probably not going to make your driving experience any It's not going to make you any safer, and it's certainly not going to make it any more convenient. You might want to check it out, but there's certainly some issues.
So we did reach out to Tesla when we were writing the story, and they told us that they had done a lot of testing with this in their early access program, where people get sort of a beta release, and it's very limited. And they told us that through our internal testing and early access program, more than 500,000 miles have already been driven with a lane change confirmation turned off. Our team consistently reviews data from instances where drivers took over while the feature has been in use, and has found that when used properly, there's that phrase again, used properly, both versions of Navigate on Autopilot offer comparable levels of safety. We've also heard overwhelmingly from drivers in our early access program that they like using the feature for road trips and during their daily commutes, and we're excited to release the option to the rest of the Tesla family. So if you want to learn more, there's a great article at consumerreports.org. We interview all kinds of experts, lawyers, cops, microprocessor engineers.
It's a very nice article
Jake
that you
Fisher,
wrote.
You're in it. You're one of the experts. So,
it's all you, Keith.
So head over there. So speaking of staying engaged, you've been listening to us for a while. Here's the time for you to offer some feedback. Do you yank that wheel?
It's our feedback loop, right?
Exactly. So you don't fall asleep. You stay engaged. You send your questions to TalkingCars@iCloud.com. So our first question's from Cameron, who says, I just watched CR's video on regular gas versus premium gas, and I still have a question. The gas station I fill up at in Utah only has 85 and 91 octane. My 2017 Ford Edge requires 87 octane. Will I damage my car if I use the regular 85 octane? Huh. What is it with liquids in Utah? You have fry sauce, the lake has salt in it, and the gas is 85 octane?
Right, yes. Yeah. So I actually had to do a little bit of research on this with our mechanic and learned that 85 octane is actually a unique octane in the Rocky Mountain area. Okay. So being from Utah, this explains why Cameron has discovered this 85 octane. And it actually is very similar to the 87 in its makeup, but actually is a little bit less combustible at higher altitudes. So you may find this 85 where you should be putting 87 according to the manufacturer's recommended into your car.
So if you're in high altitudes, it's going to be okay.
That matters more if you have like a carbureted car, which doesn't really exist anymore, right?
Well, and the truth is that it's kind of like a legacy thing, right? You know.
Exactly.
So and now because cars all have electronic fuel injection, they will adjust. I mean, the truth is that you're probably not going to damage your car because it's going to adjust even if you come down from the high altitudes.
Right. It's got the fuel injectors and everything to kind of make up for some of the.
But the truth is that you're going to be safer having the recommended fuel. So if you could get 87, put the 87 in.
And a general rule of thumb is going up is usually better, but in this specific case, the 85 will work due to the altitude.
You might want to drive a little further and get the 87. Yeah.
Perhaps.
You're from Utah, right?
I am.
Yeah.
Yes, I like fry sauce.
Oh, it's amazing. Nathaniel has a question. In a recent episode, you discussed the European Union's proposal to mandate safety equipment on cars that would include data loggers. Don't cars manufactured in the United States already have some data logging capacity through onboard diagnostics called something like OB2? It's OBD2, onboard diagnostics. And
nothing to do with Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Nope.
Just completely.
Nothing to do with
So
ODB.
Yeah. Well, but it's a different thing. So OBD2 is actually the port. It's not actually the data logger. So you could plug something into it and read the computer. Sometimes
it's often where if you have your check engine light come on and you go to a mechanic or some shop, they plug into the OBD2 to read the message.
And if you get your car inspected, they plug it in to check the emissions system.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But cars do have data loggers. And all modern cars actually do have some recording of like what happens like right before a crash, like black boxes. I think the issue is how easy it is to get that information off. And I think there's certainly some work being done to make sure that we could get that information.
Standardize it, right?
Standardize it.
These have existed for a long time. They've been in cars
They
since
have.
the 90s.
But I mean, even like there was when the Toyota sudden acceleration thing was going on, I mean, there was a lot of hard work trying to figure out exactly what happened before the crash to make that standard. And again, accident reconstruction, all that stuff, it certainly can help.
Yeah. Now, I think the interesting thing here is that a lot of that's going to be cloud-based, right?
So yeah, there's the potential to store some of the data on board in the computer, or send it through telematics, Wi-Fi, an internet connection to the cloud. So this is just going to, as we advance in this technology, it'll go to either the manufacturer, or it may go to your personal account.
There's a whole lot of interesting at the state level laws about what can be done with this data and who it can go to. So I think that's the interesting.
Well, there's a huge amount of privacy issues. Like I said, I mean, they can take this data and they can sell this, and for whatever reasons.
They could sell it. They could sell it. Okay, so Michael has a question. Michael from North Hatley, Quebec. By the way, I love the Eastern Townships. Cafe Noir up in Magog. Great, you're from one of my favorite places on earth. Michael has a question. In CR reviews from 10 to 15 years ago, car controls were criticized for misplaced buttons or the lack of a tuning knob. Now this seems to pale in comparison to recent controls like shifters that have been changed for no apparent reason. Given that distracted driving is an increasing factor in crashes, do you think there should be standard tests or requirements for car controls? Yes.
Sure.
Yeah.
And done.
Okay.
Yes. Yes, at least a general guideline, because it seems that everyone's all over the map with this stuff. Going back to the shifters, we've got knobs, we've got buttons, we've got stock shifters, traditional shifters. It's pretty crazy out there, all of the new ideas that people are having.
And the stock shifters, some go up, some are like the old school, three in the tree.
The order of the gears, exactly.
Yeah.
So it's getting a little bit crazy out there in terms of what people are doing, and there aren't really any standards. There's some minimum standards of neutral has to be between drive and reverse, but it's very minimal, and you can do a whole lot of design.
It's kind of the Wild West out there when it comes to, whether it's shifters or even like what the things are called. I mean, people, you're trying to shut some system off or turning on, you don't even know what it's called. So
right,
so
there's symbols now and icons and buttons, and now they change because they're on a touch screen.
So we totally agree. I mean, obviously, controls and usability is a big part of our scoring of these vehicles, and some cars that actually do quite well in our testing in terms of performance are going to be penalized a lot, just because it's very hard to actually use the vehicles.
And the shifters, one of the reasons those have changed, that's to save space, that's for electronic parking brakes, that's to make some more room for cup holders, right? But there's got to be a way to at least maybe change things up so that I can get into a rental car and know how it works without having to read the owner's manual to figure out the most basic thing about the car.
Right. When we test these things, we take the whole car into consideration, the usability. So once you change one thing, how does that affect the usability of other things too? So
yeah, and that's how you end
very
up
important.
Driving your Mercedes and shifting into neutral when you're trying to put the wipers on if you run into it the first time.
Yes.
Yeah. So our final question is from Aaron, and Aaron is looking for a new car for everyday use and transporting kayaks. I currently have a 2014 Jeep Patriot, which is the first SUV I've owned, but I miss the lower ride height of a car. I'm looking at the Toyota Prius XLE and XLE all-wheel drive and the Subaru Impreza Hatchback Limited. Should I consider something else? I live in Lexington, Kentucky, where we get occasional snow, but my main consideration for all-wheel drive would be driving on steep gravel roads. Thanks. That's someone who's not considering an SUV.
Yeah.
Wow.
All
right. They still exist.
Yes. Yeah.
What do you think?
So the Subaru Impreza that was suggested, I think that's actually a pretty good idea. It's got the hatchback, it's got the roof rails that you can put on for those kayaks, and it sits lower, and I'm a big fan of Subaru. You've got the all-wheel drive and a little bit of the sporty ruggedness. I think that's what they're kind of going for here.
With the kayaks.
Yeah,
Well,
exactly.
it depends on what you're looking for. So actually, my wife just bought a Prius all-wheel drive, and she loves it. But again, it's what's priorities. I would not say the Prius all-wheel drive is sporty or rugged, but the fuel economy is amazing. I mean, just like without even trying, she's getting over 50 miles per gallon. So again, it's about what are the priorities. If you want something a little more sporty and rugged, certainly the Impreza. If you want something that's really going to be amazing fuel efficiency, go for the Prius.
Yeah, and I mean, no matter what, get rid of that Jeep Patriot.
Yes.
Get rid of that.
It's time. Put a fork in it.
It's time. But what I think is so cool about this is that it's actually easier to load things on top of a lower vehicle.
That's right.
So if you're putting kayaks on there, you're not going to have to reach up so high.
That's for sure.
I'm going to go with I'm going to go with Jake. I'm going to go with Jake's wife. I'm going to pick the Prius all-wheel drive.
You can't go with my wife. I'm sorry.
If we'll go kayaking together, and we'll go with it. Well, all of us. We'll all go kayaking, and we'll all fit in the Prius because it's got five seats and it's pretty roomy inside.
It's got room.
All right, great. Good luck with your car purchasing decision. If you have a car purchase question, if you want to go kayaking with us, if you want to, if you tell us where you're from, we'll tell you what we think of it. Talk to TalkingCars at iCloud.com. Thanks so much for watching and listening, and we'll be back soon.